Hello everyone, we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in September. We're going to try to be quick about this, going up later than I wanted it to, but so life goes. Let me go turn off that air conditioner. But yes, as I was saying, just want to hurry, quickly go over everything that I read in September. Anyway, so yes, I did a TBR last month, which I don't normally do, or I haven't done in a while. And I had 6 prompts that I chose, and I completed 5 of those. One of those was a DNF, so I don't count my DNFs as read books, and the one I just didn't have time to get to before the end of the month. But yeah, let's get into it. The first book that I finished was A Defense of Honor by Kristi and Hunter. This is book 1 of the Haven Manor trilogy. And I actually was reading this for August's prompt for Chantel's Read Your Bookshelf challenge. I just didn't get to it in August. I'm a little behind on that challenge. I'm reading the books in order, just not in their correct months. I think they still count, but I read this one because the prompt was to read a book with a house on the cover. And there we go. We have the manor house there. Kip, you need to go potty. Your timing. But anyway, I wanted to go ahead and get this one done first before I started all of my other prompts. And so we follow Catherine, or she goes by Kit. She's kind of left London high society because of a scandal she was involved in unintentionally. And she's kind of just separated herself from London and high society and has been gone for over a decade, as the back says. And anyway, her business, the work that she does takes her back into London, specifically to a ball where she runs into Graham, or Lord Wharton, and things kind of go from there. She catches Graham's eye, and he's very intrigued by this mysterious lady that he's never seen before. And yeah, there's a whole lot of mystery surrounding her and who she is and why she's in London and the work that she does. And then she is linked to his best friend's sister going missing, and yeah, runs into her again, figures out that the work that she does is to help ladies, young girls who were taken advantage of by men who end up pregnant and then are cast off from society because of the scandal. As is fairly common, the men could get by with it, but the women were just cast off. And so she has created a home for these women and their children, giving the children education and teaching them skills so that they can get a job later on to help them in life, and also helping the women. You know, the women would disappear for a couple months, as was the thing, and they would take their children if they wanted to, and then the women could enter back into society without any, you know, major scandal written over them. Anyway, it's a whole thing. So it's just her ministry. A lot of it was guilt driven because of the scandal she was involved in. She felt a lot of responsibility for her and her friend. And so there is that element of learning to forgive herself and seeing her as God, seeing herself as the way God sees her, as forgiven and redeemed. Hey baby. And obviously there's a romance between her and Graham, which I enjoyed. I did rate it 4 stars on Goodreads, and that was my initial feelings towards it when I finished the book. Now I kind of forget some details, and I would still leave it at a 4-star because I loved the message of the book, of how no matter what your past is, God can redeem it, and that's not what you're defined by. And yeah, just the work that Kit was doing, and then Graham eventually wants to join in and help. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I do have the other 2 books in the series. I'm not really sure what they're going to be about, if it's going to be about other characters that I've already met in this book, or if it's going to be completely new characters. But I did enjoy it and I would recommend it. Okay, then the next one that I read, this was the first one that I read for the off of my TBR, and it was Drums in the Night. I was thinking that this was a different story, one that I had read growing up, but it was a new story. It's a very short, less than 130 pages. And it is part of the Moody Youth Library and books on missionaries. And this is about Larry living in Africa. I think Nigeria, not actually sure what country specifically. Larry is very unhappy and discontent about living in Africa as missionaries, and he just wants to go back to America, back to a more easy life, and he decides to leave their village, and because he meets some Americans who promise a way for him to get back to America if he helps them, but these men basically are not good men, and so they deceived him, and he just goes on a little adventure, gets into some danger, and it just, yeah, it was interesting. The writing style wasn't necessarily for me, but, and this book is also not even on Goodreads, so I can't even count it on my Goodreads. Bummer. But overall, a good story. It's obviously geared more towards younger readers, and yeah, there are themes of friendship and, hey baby, themes of friendship and spreading the gospel, and Larry does learn to, he doesn't understand why they're there, but over the course of the book and the story, he does develop a heart for these people and wanting to share the gospel with them, and it was interesting to see his growth and his character growth. So yes, I think this is a good story to read for your mid-grade age children, reading missionary stories and just opening their eyes to people's need for the gospel in other countries. Then the next one we're gonna just quick talk about was the DNF, and that was Cinderella Jane, and my copy's falling apart, which is fine. I'm gonna get rid of this book. Yeah, so I started it and I think I got a couple chapters into the story, and I just was not feeling it. It was very, I don't know, like the opening chapters felt a little bit disrespectful to God and faith, which I'm not about. And I don't know, then the other themes, the way that the main guy talked about women, talked about God, I don't know, I just wasn't liking the elements that I was seeing. And then I just went online and kind of looked up spoilers and looked up reviews. Wow, okay, so now the whole back cover just came off. Yeah, there were like mixed reviews about it, and the reviews of the book that were really high, I could understand maybe a little bit, just following Jane, the main girl. She's basically a nobody in the world of artists and everything in New York, I think is where it's set. The whole story basically is that she agrees to marry a man so that he can fund her writing career that she wants to pursue. And so looking up the spoilers, looking up the different reviews of it, I just kind of decided this book probably isn't for me, just because of some of the themes, and it is more of a secular book, secular ideas, and ones that I don't fully get behind. So I just decided to DNF it. I don't know, I think reading He Fell in Love with His Wife just kind of like set the bar really high for some of these older books, and it's just disappointing when you pick up these older books. I don't know why in my head, I just think that Christian ideas and morals were more popular back in the day, and I know that they were just more generally accepted, whether or not people believed in Jesus and were actually Christians, like Christian in name only. But so picking up older books like this that have that don't really have those ideas in them is a little disappointing. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. I'm saying the themes and the elements in this book and just kind of the disrespect. There was also some language in here too. All around, it was just kind of disappointing for an old book. But again, he fell in love with his wife. Set the bar really high, and this one fell really short. I did tab a few lines in here about books and writing that I really appreciated. But yeah, the writing style itself even was just not, I wasn't jiving with it, so DNF. We're gonna be done talking about it now. Next, I picked up one that was more for mood reading, and that was Drake Hall, number 2 in the Secrets of Ormdell. I rated this one 4 stars. This one kind of, I rated the first one 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed the second book, but it felt a little bit more like a filler, kind of the second book syndrome, if you will, where it was still so good. I still highly recommend it, but it felt a little bit more lacking in all of the excitement and the elements of the first book. I don't know, maybe it was because the first book is obviously just being introduced to this world and this story and these characters, and then the second one is continuing it. But what I did love about this book was that it was continuing the story and the relationship and the romance for Edith and her next door neighbor. And that's what Drake Hall is about. It's like his home and the secrets that it has in association with the dragons and being keepers of the dragons. And so yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it, and it did, you obviously continue the story. You get more of Edith, you get more of Drake, and that's kind of all I remember about it, because like I said, there weren't as many like things revealed in the book, in book 2, as it was in the first one. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I would still recommend it. I still recommend the series. And yes, I do hope to get the physical copies soon. But I'll just go ahead and talk about book number 3 as well, because I did read that one, and that was Castle of the Winds. And I enjoyed this one more than the second one. So in the end of the second one, she gets an invitation to some mysterious place, and it was like an ancient letter invitation, and was obviously still in connection with the dragons and the families who were keepers of the dragons. And at the end of the book, at the end of book 2, it was decided that she would go with her dad, but things turned out that she actually went with, why can't I think of his name? I just know his last name. I guess he just goes by his last name, Drake, but what is his first name? Anyway, we're just gonna call him Drake. But Drake ends up going with her on this mystery journey to figure out what this invitation was about, what everything involving that, as her escort. And so that's fun. You get more of their story, which I loved. And yeah, so they're basically invited to this hidden, remote town village in the mountains of Scotland, and where there are more dragons, dragons that you can ride. And so that was fun. But yeah, the people there in the town, and the king and the prince of this area, it says the red dragon will choose his bride. So basically she and another girl were invited, and this prince is trying to figure out which one he wants to choose to be his bride. And so whoever she would choose, they would have to stay there. But it was very secretive, this place that they're at. They don't know how to get out of there because they were blindfolded when they were brought in. Things like that. There's just a lot of weird things going on, but it is set up to look kind of like a utopia. But yeah, not so great things happening. And so there's just all of that going on, where Edith is trying to figure out a way to escape, because because of her gift of being able to heal dragon bites, she feels like she's going to be selected as the bride, and she does not want that. and doesn't want to be used for her gift. Very interesting. I loved it. I rated this one 5 stars. So good. I love this series. This one was released in April of this year. I'm not sure when book number 4 is coming out. I'll put it here. I'll look it up and just put it here on the screen. But I am absolutely loving the series, as I've said, and I am excited to read the rest of them. I think there's going to be 2 more books yet in the series, so total of 5. But anyway, there we go. If you love cozy fantasy without magic, a little bit of romance, a lot of mystery, then I think you would really enjoy this series. Okay, so moving on. The next book that I finished was Selected to Live. This is just her story of growing up in Nazi-occupied Holland as a Jew, and just the miraculous story of her surviving the Holocaust, even when her family was taken. It was just, yeah, God's hand was on her life in so many unique ways, of just the ways that she got out of scrapes and the roundups and everything. Like, she just always somehow found a way to get out of it. But it's also her journey of coming to faith in Jesus Christ through all of that. And it was just very interesting. It was very, be real. I was reading this book in one of my previous vlogs, and I'll link it here as well, that you can go watch. I go a little bit more in depth about my thoughts on the book, but I do recommend it. I don't know if I actually gave it a star rating, because it's really, I struggle with giving star ratings to biographical works, because it's the person's life, it's their story. It's not like, I don't know. The writing style I didn't love, but I love the story and I love the message, so we'll leave it at that. And I do recommend it if you are interested in reading more stories about that time period. But I also loved the aspect of her coming to faith in Jesus. The next one that I finished was this chunker, Frederyk Chopin's biography by Alan Walker. I did tab a few things, mostly in the first part of the book, because the second half of the book I was just, you know, trying to get through this book. Very interesting, I will say. I did not give it a star rating, again, because it's about his life. Alan Walker goes into depth of the life and times. So there's a lot of history involved, just the time period that Chopin was growing up in Poland. And wow, Poland has gone through it. Their history of just constantly being taken over by other countries, and just the political turmoil. But the times that we live in, the country we live in, and the political environment, the social environment, things like that, it does in some ways shape who we are as a people. And so he did a really great job of bringing that aspect out of Chopin and who he was, who his family was, and just the connections that Chopin made because he was an up-and-coming genius on the piano. I love Chopin's music, his compositions, everything. He's one of my favorite composers. And so I found this book to be really interesting, but you have to be really interested in someone's life to find the book interesting, I should say, because it was very detailed with all of the historical aspects of it, and then going into detail about Chopin's life and all of that. I found it interesting. I'm not sure that a ton of people would find it interesting. I did find the audiobook then and read it while listening to the audiobook, which helped bring the story more to life for me. And it also helped with the pronunciation of all of the French and Polish names and words and everything. But I completed it, which I was very shocked that I actually got it done in a month. But if you would have seen some of my vlogs, I made a graph of how many pages I need to read per day to get through the book in a month. And I actually finished it several days early because the audiobook helped me to read read it a lot faster. But yeah, we completed it and we got this big one checked off my physical TBR, which I'm very grateful for. I enjoyed the book. No star rating again, but it felt like a great accomplishment to get it done. Anyway, the final book that I read in September was Here Burns My Candle by Lizz Higgs. I don't think it's really a spoiler, maybe it is, but this is kind of her retelling the story of Ruth. But I didn't pick it up until closer to the end, which might just give it away, some of the details of the book. But this is set during the mid 1700s with the Jacobite rising and like just the war between Scotland and England and the kings who were wanting to take over, all of that. But Elizabeth she is a Highlander, so she supports the Jacobite cause, but she's married into one of the noble families of the area who support the English king. So she's got to kind of keep that secret. Anyway, this family has lots and lots of secrets, and these secrets start to come to the surface. Everything going on with that. Even, okay, I'm gonna read this, just the last chapter of the synopsis on the back. A timeless story of love and betrayal, loss and redemption, flickering against the vivid backdrop of 18th century Scotland. Here Burns My Candle illumines the dark side of human nature, even as hope, the brightest of tapers, lights the way home. So, I rated this book 3 stars. I did want to finish the book, but around the midway point, towards the end, I was getting a little bored with the storyline. It just felt like it could have gone a little bit faster. But there were elements that I enjoyed. Watching Elizabeth come to a faith in God, because as a Highlander she was kind of more steeped into other religions and ideas, praying to the moon, that kind of thing. But yeah, it wasn't until the end of the book that the connection to the story of Ruth was started to make sense to me, and because I didn't know that that's what she was doing. Oh. Excuse me. There are battles going on. There's obviously with the war and the uprising happening. Ultimately, I'm just not really sure that Lizz Higgs is the author for me. I do plan to read the second book that goes with this, because this story ends with Elizabeth and her mother-in-law moving back to her mom's original hometown. So I am curious to see where Elizabeth's story goes from there, with like meeting the Boaz. All of this to say, I did enjoy some of the aspects of the story. I'm just not sure that Lizz Higgs is the author for me. But this is only the second book that I've ever read by her. But I was uncomfortable with some of the elements of the other book that I had read. And so same thing with this one. I didn't fully connect with the characters and the storyline itself. There were some aspects of it that were interesting enough to keep me going to read to the end. I did kind of have to force myself to finish the book at the end, but yeah, I don't know. 3 stars. I especially wouldn't really recommend it to younger readers just because of all of the mentions of adultery and other things in the book. But yeah, I don't know. I struggled with the book a little bit and didn't really love it. Take that for what you will. I am glad to have given her another chance. Again, it just doesn't feel like she's really going to be an author for me, but we'll see how I feel about the second book then. If it just continues to happen that I'm just like, I don't love these, then we're just gonna leave it at that. And it's okay, because not every author is for every reader. But anyway, that is my wrap up. A total of 7 books read with 1 DNF. Completed my TBR, except 1 book that I just didn't get to or have time to read. But yeah, let me know what your favorite book that you read in September was. My favorite for sure was continuing the Wormwood Abbey, the Tales of Wormwood Abbey books. Love those so much. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.